There we go. Made sure I put a Post-it note to not forget to turn on my mic like I often do in these art live streams. Hello, welcome. I'm Todd Nauck, and I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for hanging with me and coming to, let me turn down the volume on my phone here so I can read your comments while I draw. So I'm so glad you're here so we can do some art. It's been, gosh, almost a month since I've last done an art live stream. Gotta tell you, gang, I've been really busy, been working on some comic book projects, and one of those will be coming out in December. I'm very excited about that, and I look forward to when I can talk about that. My Marvel headshot covers are coming out now, so hopefully you picked up my Marvel headshot cover for Spider-Man 52, I believe, and my Spider-Woman one came out for Spider-Woman either 5 or 6. I have some Eternals ones coming out and many more through the coming months, so keep an eye on that. And you can follow me on my social media. I'm always trying to post when my latest comic book projects come out. But right now, it's time to do some drawing. I'm going to draw Magneto on this vintage, well, it's a vintage comic, but it's a reprint. It's a facsimile edition with a brand new sketch cover here. This is X-Men #1. This is the original X-Men cover that we might all recognize, this classic Jack Kirby cover here. And it's a reprint of the first issue of X-Men from 1963. And a comic shop made through Marvel made some limited edition X-Men #1 sketch cover variants. So I thought it'd be fun to draw on this one here. So let's see. Looks like the let me just double check, make sure. Uh-oh. My camera has dislodged. Let's see if I can get this going again. Oh dear. I wondered what that beep boop was. Hopefully we can get the camera back. Otherwise I've jacked up this live stream. When I was adjusting my rig here to launch the live stream, I think I bumped a cord. I think that dislodged the art camera. Yep, it looks like I jacked this up. I might have to start this one over from scratch, everyone. This is very, very disappointing. But we will try to reconvene here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned. We'll start a new art live stream 104 here really soon, and see if we can get this working. So technical difficulties, these things happen. We'll just try to work around it. So please do come back. Stay tuned. Stay tuned to my channel. This is gonna, as soon as I can get this up and running, it'll be going. We'll get it live and popping. So, but for now, it looks like I'm gonna have to end this live stream because I can't get my. Well, let's see if I can do this. Let me see if I can stop streaming. We'll see. We'll do an experiment here. This is all new for me here. So what if I just. All right, am I back? All right, I think I might be back. Gotta wait for my video to catch up to real time here. Looks like, okay, looks like we're good. So we didn't have to end the stream. I'll just edit this part out. Apologize for that, but let me see if I can find your comments now. Live chat, there we go. Hey everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. Looks like a net didn't show up. Yes, this is live TV, working without a net. You know, it's like a high wire act, working without a net, because a net just never shows up to help me produce these things. So, but you longtime viewers of my live streams, you know this, you know this. So without further ado, let's get to sketching. So, let's see, gonna just slide this up a little bit so we can see more of the canvas that I'll be working on here. This area here, for you young artists, is called the canvas. This is the image area I'll be working in. So gonna use this Pilot Color Eno red pencil here so you can kind of get a better visual of what my breakdown, when I break down the shapes, what those would look like. I'll do my best to answer and respond to your questions and comments if I can. Fortunately, I can't respond to everyone's, but I'll do the best I can to respond to as many as possible. So, so I was thinking of getting some foreshortening going here. Kind of wanted to do that Magneto, that Jack Kirby arm way up in the hand, way up in the foreground, and the arm recessing further to the background. You know how Magneto's always throwing his hand out there to do his magnet mojo. So I'm starting pretty lightly. Hopefully, oh, this is barely showing up here. Maybe I should switch to the graphite pencil. Maybe that does actually show up better. Gonna just start throwing in the rough shapes here. So getting that hand there into the foreground. This will all tighten up as we go here. Hopefully we can get the pencils and the inks done in this video. Then I got the forearm, and with foreshortening, the body parts are going to overlap. So the forearm, the hand overlaps the forearm, but the forearm overlaps the bicep, the upper arm, which then connects to the shoulder, and then we have the pectoral muscle here. A lot of this has come for me through studying of life drawing, and then just real life as well, and then just kind of learning the shapes. Unfortunately, this isn't really a life drawing class, so I can't, you know, I'm not really prepared to give you very specifics and step-by-step instruction of how I get to here. So this is, but I'm doing the best I can to try to give you some as much instruction as I can. I'm not really an art teacher, though I do appreciate that a lot of you have said you have learned stuff by watching my videos. So hopefully just learning, but I'm a visual learner. So it's that's the way I learn. So that's kind of the way I, for a better word than teach is maybe coach, as in kind of like encourage to just try. So sorry for that wibbly wobbly sort of explanation. Then we got the head here. Hopefully I'll get better at teaching. I'm a trial and error kind of guy. I don't worry about can I do it perfectly. I just worry about just doing it and then perfecting it as I go, or not even wanting to use the word perfect, but get better at it as I go. I think there's a difference there. Okay, now I've gotten this far in, and I could work this, but something's just not working for me. There's just something missing. I don't like the way it's sitting on the page here, so I'm going to erase and try again. Or at least erase the body here. And I do this a lot. Any comic book artist, any pro artist, we do this multiple times to find that just the right pose. So it's okay to erase. Don't feel bad for erasing. That's why erasers exist. And I'm using a kneaded art gum eraser here, K-N-E-A-D, like kneading bread, kneaded art gum eraser, just in case some of y'all might want to get this type of eraser. So I'm going to see if I can keep that forearm here and see if I can adjust this. Just because I felt his body was too far off to the left, and I wanted to kind of move him a little more centrally located to get some more parts like his other arm in the shot if I can. So we're just going to make that foreshortening even more extreme to where his forearm is actually covering up more of his upper arm. Need to get the flow of his body here. And as I'm working on this, I'm realizing I don't like this at all. So I'm gonna take it back to square one. See, I'm realizing this early so I can cut my losses and make adjustments sooner. It can be really frustrating, not every time, but sometimes it can be really frustrating to get so far into an illustration that you're pot committed. Like when you play poker and you've already put so many chips into the center pot that it's like, I can't fold my hand because I'm so far in, I gotta hope that I can still win. Oftentimes you end up busting or losing to someone who has a better hand. So that's what I mean by pot committed, if you haven't heard that term, if you haven't played Texas Hold'em or anything like that. Love watching Texas Hold'em on ESPN. One of my favorite sports, so poker. Texas Hold'em poker particularly. Omaha is pretty cool too. Don't get to play it much nowadays, but just with friends, low stakes stuff, low stakes. I'm not a big gambler when it comes to that sort of stuff. But instead, sorry, I got onto a tangent here talking about Texas Hold'em. I don't want to get so committed to the image that I'm working on that if it's not working right, that I'm so far into it that it's like, I gotta hope for the best that it is kind of okay. It's better at this stage, not working, stop, readjust. So we're gonna try something kind of similar, but a slightly different approach. So I got the head here. Just a little left of center. I don't want to be, for this image, I didn't want to be dead center. Sometimes I think it's more interesting if the character's not quite centralized. It's okay for it to be a character to be centralized, you know, right there in the center, if one wants, that's a part of their vision. Today, that's not really my vision. It might end up becoming my vision if I keep sketching here and realizing, I just don't like this. So, so this stage is the best stage to realize it's not working. I gotta try something different. Erase now while before things get so heavily detailed onto the page that it would be too heartbreaking to start over. Nothing wrong with starting over. We are mapping out. I really want that foreshortening. I love that Magneto foreshortening, that Jack Kirby foreshortening. So still going to try to work that one hand in the foreground. I'm just coming at it from a different angle. Before I started with the hand and worked my way back to his head and chest. For me, I love the head of a character, the face. I mean, we connect with a character's face. But the hands can be very expressive. So I really love how one can express with the hands. They're just as emotional as the face. So what I needed to do, I think, here was start with the face and the body, know where that's going to be, keeping in mind where the hand would go, and then adding the hand after I figured out where the main part of the body would go. And then I can put the foreshortened forearm here, knowing where the shoulder is. And then I would imagine the upper arm falling behind that forearm. So, and so then I have his right shoulder over here. Just going to keep roughing in all the shapes. I know this is really scratchy. This is why I wanted to break it all down in red pen, then tighten it up with graphite. But the red pencil just wasn't showing up. And what good would it be for me to do a bunch of sketching and you can't see it? But this will tighten up, and hopefully more details will come to life here as we go. Let's check into some of your questions. What do you do when you're thinking about stop drawing? What do I do when I'm thinking of stopping drawing? Like, I'm not quite sure if I understand what you mean there. As in like ending an illustration or just like giving up on drawing. So I'm not sure which direction you're going with that. If you'd like to, you know, give more info on what it is you're talking about, I'd love to try to answer that as accurately and as appropriately as I can. How did I learn to draw? Trial and error. I just started to draw as a little kid because, I mean, little kids, we love to draw when we're little. And for some of us, we move on to other things. Other of us, we just keep on drawing. And I just kept on drawing. I took after-school art class in 4th grade, which was really cool. Learned some stuff there. I took art as an elective in junior high and high school whenever I could, just so I could draw in school without getting in trouble, because I always was drawing. I didn't get in a lot of trouble, but my teachers would say, Todd, you need to be, you know, taking notes, not drawing. I can't help it. I just gotta scribble. I gotta doodle. It's just what I do. But when you're in art class, that's what the point is you're going to be drawing or creating or something like that. So I really enjoyed that. And then I went to art college after high school to help make my art skills more professional. That was back in the 1990s. And then that helped lead me to get the skills I needed to get my skills professional enough to get hired into my chosen field, which is professional comic book artist. So that's kind of the short answer. So it felt like it was a little bit long, but for me, that's pretty short. So that's how I learned how to draw. You were drawing last night and erased and drew the whole thing about 10 times. Yeah, that's the nature of drawing. I think there's this kind of myth or this idea we get in our head, because I had this idea when I was a kid. When you become a pro artist, it just works out perfectly every time. And now that I'm a pro artist, I can tell you, assuredly, it does not work out perfectly every time. You draw, you erase, you draw again, you erase, you try again, you erase. It's just the nature of being human and trying to create. And sometimes we can make it work, sometimes we can't, and we have to find a way to get there. And sketching it out and erasing is something everyone does. There's no shame in erasing and trying a new approach. I do it daily because that's just the nature. Let's see. So I'm starting to like this a bit more here. Then we'll have this hand, this arm, kind of the forearm tucked back here, and then the upper arm tucked at the body, and then the forearm, this kind of classic tuck in the arm sort of motion. I don't know if that showed up on camera there in the little preview cam, but little picture in picture, I should say. Is that okay? Make sure that's still in camera frame. And give him one of kind of these hands where he's just kind of has the magnetic charge building in his hand. We have the fingers kind of clenched, not into a fist, but kind of in that sort of bad guy. I guess good guys can make this hand too. So really want to tuck that head down. I really want him to have that kind of that. The more you tilt the character's head down, where they're having to kind of look from the top of their eyes, can be more of a sinister sort of pose or head pose. Okay, down to the pelvic area, get the thighs worked in here. Really rough, keeping it rough. Keeping it light, because it's easier to erase light pencil lines than if you bear down really hard and you try to erase and you can still see that ghost image of the pencil line there because you bared down so hard the graphite really imprinted into the paper. Yeah, that's... I've been there and I've learned sketch in lightly. Sketch in lightly, because if you got to erase, it makes it easier to get the get that graphite off the page and not seen. Okay, and then here we'd have his magnet powers. We kind of have him hunched over here a little bit. Now we can start putting in details of his costume. Now that we've kind of worked in all the body parts here. Let's check into another question. How thick is this paper? It's about the thickness of a, you can see here, it's not too flimsy. The comic book pages inside, a little more, you know, they're more, you know, magazine page. But the sketch covers tend to be more of a cardstock, more of like a Bristol board, if you will. So yeah, it works great. It works great. So now I'm going to start to work in his facial features here. I want to work in his facial features before I start to put on his helmet. It's better to know where his face is than draw the helmet in around that than to draw a cool helmet and then try to fit the face inside. I've seen it happen too many times. I've done it myself in my early days. Draw the cool helmet, then fit the face inside, and things don't line up quite right, and it looks weird. So it's better to map out the face first, then the helmet goes over it. is what I shoot for. And I found I have better success at achieving the look that I'm going for, that everything ends up where I want it to be. Give him a grimace there, that kind of grimace, because he often does that. Gonna rough in where the nose will go. Probably be some heavy shadows inside of this helmet. Take another question here. Do I do digital coloring as well? My Copic skills are amazing. One, thank you for enjoying my Copic work. I have been trying to learn digital coloring. I have been experimenting with that. I have been trying to teach myself that more and more whenever I can. It's not a skill that I have as strong as maybe my Copic skills, but it is something I'm working on. I know some basics, but there's still so much more for me to learn. I do enjoy coloring digitally. In fact, you can see some of my digital color videos here on my YouTube channel. I think I have a digital art playlist, so you should be able to see what that looks like here on my channel. In fact, I need to rework this face. It's not quite fitting right, so I'm going to try again. Let's look for another question here. How often do I draw on the iPad? Not as much as I would like. I've got so many other projects and things I'm working on that spending time learning how to get better at drawing in Procreate on my iPad has, I just haven't had the time to really invest in that yet. I want to be able to get better at Procreate, but I just haven't had, like I said, the opportunity because I'm working on my comic book stuff, commission stuff, creator-owned stuff, and so I'm doing, if I'm going to draw digitally, I'm going to draw my Wacom Mobile Studio Pro because I have a program called Clip Studio Paint that I use for my comic book drawing digitally, and so I've been learning to get better at that. I do have an intention and desire to want to get better at drawing in Procreate on my iPad, but like I said, just trying to find the time to work on that has taken a back seat to my other projects and the other things I'm learning. So only so much time in the day, but I do hope to get better at that and do more digital drawing in Procreate, because it's very similar in some ways to drawing in Clip Studio Paint, but there are different tools and different things that I need to learn. So there's some similarities and some differences. So now that I know where his eyes, nose, and mouth are, as well as jawline and chin, I can start drawing in the helmet around him so that we got that open area there. I can just arc that around as necessary. To fit on his head. And we've got that trim. How's that trim go? I've got some, it's got so many different kind of designs to his helmet. I want to make sure, you know, I capture that kind of classic Magneto helmet. There have been so many variations. So I Google searched Magneto just so I Magneto / Marvel Comics, so I could get the see what some of the classic Marvel comic helmets have looked like. I haven't drawn Magneto. I mean, I could fake it. I could probably get most of the details right, but I would rather look and see exactly how those shapes go so I can fit them onto my illustration here. Got that purple trim that runs along a red helmet, and he's got that kind of funky horseshoe spiky horseshoe thingy. Maybe put some heavy shadow here around his eyes. So let's see. So now we can start to put in his collar. He's got this big kind of harness thing. It goes over his shoulders, like this big U shape. Just kind of put some energy signature here. Oops, looks like my the palm of my hand had kind of smudged away some of the fingers I'd roughed in. But that's okay, I didn't have those fingers perfectly where I wanted them to be. They were just kind of placeholders. Sometimes I'll put a sheet of paper. I got this little scratch sheet here. So I'll just put this down and then I'll put my hand on top of it whenever I'm drawing if I feel like things are going to smudge, to help avoid smudging. Okay, so I know I have one. He's got these big circles, these studs that go on his harness. So I want to keep in mind the placement. So there's like one in the center, one in the middle, one to the corner, roughly. And so I try to keep them as symmetrical as possible. This forearm there. This is really extreme foreshortening here. So much so that the forearm, hand and forearm are covering up the rest of his arm. See, he's got this little magnet shape that hangs at the bottom of that harness. When we get to inks here, this is all really going to start to come together, gang. Let's take a look to see if there are any other questions. Let's see. When I'm drawing on Post-it notes, are they on Post-it brand or sometimes the store brand ones? Most of them are on the 3M Post-it brand Post-it notes, but I have bought off-brand. Yeah, just whatever colors I wanted to have. You know, I don't care what the brand is necessarily, because Post-it notes are Post-it notes from what I can tell. Sometimes a cheaper Post-it note the sticky is not as high quality. And I have gotten Post-it brands that the stickum is so strong that it tears the sheets underneath. There's one that I got that was just absolutely terrible. It was actually given to me, and every time you tore off one sheet, it would just shred the sheet underneath it, to where it became just this big gloppy mess. So yeah, I look for sales on the the bigger name brand Post-its, but I mean, Post-its aren't that expensive for the most part, so I'm willing to take a gamble on an off-brand if it's a color that intrigues me. You know, that's a color I don't have in my collection, so that I can have those color options, Post-it color options. Yeah, most of them are the 3M Post-it brand, but like I said, not opposed to trying other brands. All right, and he's got this big old belt. This is one bar, no buckle or anything on it, just one. How does he get into this belt? He must have to magnetic. Let's try this again. Very difficult. Magnetically manipulate the belt to fit on him. Like, he expands it, he gets in it, and then he contracts it to him, because there's no seam and there's no buckle like you'd put on a belt, like how we wear belts. You know, you put the belt on through the loop and, you know, through the buckle. He don't got that. It's just one solid piece of, I'm assuming, metal, because oftentimes when it's drawn, it has kind of this reflective nature to it. So I'm assuming he has to magnetically put this belt on. And apparently this belt is to hold up his little purple underwear, so that he wears on the outside of his clothes. So that's just the way things were in the 1960s. And I mean, I wasn't alive then. I don't know what the world was like then, aside from what I've read in, you know, books, magazines, comics, and seen on TV. Giant metal belts were probably all the rage for holding up your underwear on the outside in the superhero community, and that's just the way it was. And it was that way for a long time. I remember Magneto was wearing this belt in the 80s when I started reading comics as a kid. So, all right. Keeping in mind, oops, some of that was off screen. Sorry, gang. Just fleshing out those underpants and the thigh muscles. All right, so just about got all these shapes roughed in. Enough of the details. I just get enough details that I can then move to inks. Just want to rough in these hands a little bit more. This hand pose. Now when we're drawing a palm, we have this part of the palm, this part of the palm, this part of the palm, and then the fingers, you know, 3-sectioned digits, except for the thumb. It's 2. Well, there's like this extension part, then this digit, these 2 segments. So we can then bend them to an infinite number of positions or degrees to create our hands. So if you ever need hand reference, just look at your hand. Make it to that pose that you want, and then study the shapes, and then try to replicate that with your style of line and shape making. That's kind of the short form answer there for explanation, but that's kind of how I did it as a kid and still do it as an adult. All right, now we gotta get this hand a little bit more figured out here since I smudged out his fingers, but I wanted to adjust the fingers here just a little bit. See it? It's like these it got a strong index and middle finger, but the ring and pinky are just kind of there, and I want them to have as much power as the first 2 fingers. I want those last 2 fingers to have more power, so in the pose. So what I'm going to do is erase and adjust. So I've got the 3 sections of the meaty part of the palm. This part here, I don't know the scientific medical names for this part, and this part, but those are my 3. That's the trinity of the palm as far as I'm concerned in my approach. So I got that ridge where the fingers connect, the outside meaty part of the palm, and the thumb part of the meaty palm, and then you kind of got this little negative space, this little wrinkle space that is kind of like the little bay inside, B-A-Y, inside that thing there. Gonna need to check out comments and questions here and again in a sec. All right, so I think I need to adjust all the fingers now. And this is part of the thought process. This is why we do what we do. This is why we have erasers. I needed to move this index finger up a little bit because I had it so far over that it was crowding out space for the ring and pinky fingers. So I'm breaking each finger down for each section of the digit. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then this thumb has gotten way too long. Got to rein this thumb in. So we have that meaty part of the palm where the thumb is, and then 1, 2. Redrawing that harness that accidentally got erased. 1, 2. Oh, see, that's right. Just seeing that my studs are not lining up the way I want them to. I got to make adjustments here. The more work I do at getting it as right as possible in this stage makes it better when I move into the finer details, especially when I do the final inks. If it's not lining up now is the time to fix it. Fix it now before you start doing the permanent stuff. Whether you're doing the tight finished pencils or the inks. When you're doing the inks, then you are making it very permanent. What I'm thinking I'm doing is I'm not bringing the harness far enough over, because part of it would fall behind his foreshortened forearm. So that's why I'm getting crowded at the corner. Don't want to get crowded at the corner. Don't get crowded at the corner. All right. So I think I'm making the studs a little too big, so I can just kind of make note of to make them smaller here. Do I ever use the Wacom Glove to prevent smudging? I don't. I haven't gotten used to wearing the Wacom Glove. I have one. I just haven't gotten used to wearing it when I draw. And it has been, I got it through the hot months here in California, so it's like not comfortable to wear it because these two fingers start to get warm wearing a glove in the heat. So now that we're moving into the winter months, even though Southern California, it does get a bit chilly here as we move into the fall and winter. Maybe not as much as in other parts of the country, but enough for us Californians, that maybe I can get back into trying to get used to wearing that glove. So for me, it's just a piece of paper, put it down, put my palm on that, and then it does it's the cheap man's version of the Wacom Glove, or Wacom Glove, depending on how you say that product name. I've heard it both ways. All right, so we've just about got this figured out. Put my magnet power signature squiggles. Now we still have the cape. The cape, big part of classic Magneto. Am I barely holding my pencil? I've learned to hold it. I've learned how to make my grip lighter, so I'm not bearing down, like just carving graphite into the artboard. So I've learned how to develop the lighter, more controlled grip and touch, so that I can put down lighter lines and have that flow that doesn't really just, like I say, make it really bared down and dark. Now I can bear down and really make this dark if I wanted to or needed to, but don't want to, don't need to, especially at this stage here. Now this is so we got the cape. Since I know where the shoulder is, I can draw the cape. The cape connects to his harness here. So I'm keeping that in mind, and the cloth coming up over his shoulder and then falling towards his back. So since I know where his shoulder is, I can start to sculpt the cape over it. An early mistake thing that I feel is a mistake, or not mistake's the wrong word. I'm going to retract that word if you don't mind. Thank you for the grace. An early approach that I feel is not as beneficial, is the way I'd rather phrase that, is to draw the harness, draw the cape, and then try to fit the arm underneath. I don't believe it will fit together as powerfully as it could is if you draw in the figure first and then put the cloth on top of it. Because then you are for sure guaranteed that the arm connects to the shoulder properly. The arm connects. So the stuff that you don't see, has been properly figured out and it fits together. Because I've seen illustrations, I've done illustrations as a kid, as a young artist, as a young adult, even sometimes as an adult. If I got lazy, it's like, well, I'll just kind of fudge that. It shows. It comes through more often than not. Something doesn't quite fit right. And, you know, we can all do it. You know, we get tired. We want to cut corners. Cutting corners is a risk, a gamble that might not always work out. Sometimes it might, and you got away with that one. But I think it's a better habit to learn to rough in the full figure. Now, unless you're like Kim Jong-gi and you can just, you know, he's so practiced that he has it visualized in his mind. He can draw it where everything fits together with pen right to the paper. He's amazing. And there are other artists that do that. I don't do that. I have not trained in that way. If I could do that, and maybe one day I will be able to, I just have to start practicing that, utilizing the knowledge I have, and then moving forward. But for a lot of us, I think we got to break it down first, and then build on top of that. My dad was in construction. He designed and built houses. He built the foundation, then he did the framework, then he did, you know, the roofing, the walls, and things like that. He built stage by stage. So that's kind of the way I'm built as well. It's like I build the foundation of my figure, and then I put the details on top of it, like building a house or baking a cake. You know, you got the cake, then you put the icing, then you put the decorations, you know, on top. It's like stage after stage after stage. That's just a way I think a lot of us draw, and that might be the way it works for you. If not, more power to you. You do you. Rock your art the way you rock your art. But I know we have a lot of young artists here that wonder, hey, how do you do this? So I'm going to teach you from encourage you from my experience, from the ways I have learned. And I'm always trying to learn new things, so the way I draw things could very well change in the course of my videos. In fact, the stuff I do now is different than what I did in my earlier YouTube videos, because I have learned some new tricks. I have evolved my art, and that's the fun of it, is that art, we're always evolving. The more we draw, the better chance we have at our art evolving to new stages. That was a very long, wibbly wobbly answer, but like I said, you longtime viewers, you know that's how I roll. So now we just now I'm putting the cape kind of flaring and folding and flipping all around him here, these big billowy folds, trying to keep in mind where is it coming from and where is it going to. And a lot of it's trial and error, experiment, and kind of make it fit as needed. Like, let's put some magnet squiggles around this hand as well. So just gonna throw in some energy signature there. And a lot of this cape back here will be kind of darker, so that the figure really pops. Really, the shadows of the cape behind him really pushes the figure work forward. So the cape is almost more of a backdrop or a graphic element to frame our Magneto. This part of the billow, maybe there's a little more light hitting it, so we don't fill it all the way in black. I might make a change as I move towards the inks, but just a thought. Oh yeah, I'm gonna give him some of these classic. He has in the olden days, he had like these kind of stripes, these seams that ran down his down the front of his costume, which I always thought looked kind of cool. So I think we got enough here that we can move into, oh yeah, and just so you can see the bottom, I forgot to slide this up a little bit. The bottom of his cape was just like that. So I want to make sure you got to see everything. And let's see, and we're gonna put dark in the purples of his costume. So we'll leave the red open, the purple gets the darker shadow. This way we have a little contrast in the line art, separating dark from light sections. So there's purple in the inner part of his collar. And of course we'll have those, oh, I forgot his glove stripes. He's got these red glove stripes that arc around. Oops. See, I'm cutting corners here and how to do that so they weren't lining up correctly. It's better if I draw the stripe all the way around. And then there's the center section. And then I go in and I erase that center section to make each red stripe. And I know now that each red stripe will make it past the break to the other section. Then we're gonna have some dark here in his gloves because they are purple. All right, the stripes here going around his forearm are gonna be a little thinner because of the angle of the foreshortening. So I have to keep that in mind. I need to put a little of that shadow in the purple parts of his gloves here. And then the fingers, not as much shadow because the magnetic signature, even though the magnetic signature isn't really lit up, and in some ways it can be. It's kind of this weird, like, so we can see it in the art. Do the characters see it in real life? Do they see a glow around Magneto when he uses his magnet powers? Or is it because you can't really see the magnetic spectrum? Is it that it's invisible, but we illustrate it so that we as comic book readers can see it? So some might say, well, because his hands are lit up, you can't see shadow. There wouldn't be as much shadow in his hands. And I agree with that. But I'm also considering, but maybe it's invisible. So I'm kind of walking this weird line between, are these lit up magnet powers or are they invisible magnet powers? I'll let the reader decide. So let the viewer decide. Oh, and then we'll have some shine here in the helmet here, reflecting the world around him. All right, so very, very sketchy. What I want to do real quick is just snap a photo for this in case I want to add it to social media. Might as well do that while we're here, and I've got a little break here. Now let's move into inks. We're just going to bust into inks. What do you say? What do you say? So I'm going to use my Pigma Microns for the most part. So I'm going to use a 0.8 right now. I'm going to try working foreground towards the background. And I'm going to use some colored Micron as well for his energy signature. Because is it visible? Is it invisible? We don't know, but the blue will help convey that. Is it visible? Is it lit up? You, as the viewer, get to decide what you're seeing. So, so we're going to start right now with inking the fingers. I'm starting with the very foremost part. Uh-oh. Oh. It's like, oh, it froze up. What happened? Try this again. I want to join everyone so I can see the comments and questions. There we go. We're live again. Or I'm live. I can see myself moving. So that helps. Let's see. Make sure I'm back in the place I need to be. Sorry for that, gang. And now we can keep with the inks, and let's look into some questions here. Would I ever consider a Batman's Rogue Gallery piece like my multi-part X-Men piece? Consider it? Absolutely. I would consider that. Batman has a great Rogues Gallery. he and Spider-Man probably have the two biggest and coolest rogues galleries of all the superheroes. I mean, how many Batman and Spider-Man villains can we name off the top of our heads? So many. The Avengers have a great rogues gallery. X-Men do too. Superman does as well. But I think Batman and Spider-Man have the most famous rogues. Joker, Riddler, Penguin, Catwoman, Dr. Octopus, Venom, Sandman, Green Goblin. I mean, come on, Green Goblin. Let's see. You're thinking of quitting drawing because you're not getting better at it. You know you don't need to quit, but do I have any tips for you? Great question, a deep question, because we're talking about what's going on inside of a person. And no matter what we do, we all are dealing with that person that is inside of us. Our feelings, our emotions, our hopes, our dreams, our successes, our failures, our disappointments, our resentments sometimes. These things come into play. So for me, for my experience, because I can only share from my experience, so please bear with me. Your results may vary, but you're asking for tips from me, so you're going to get Todd Nauck tips based on what Todd Nauck's experience has been, I should say. For me, it's for me, I've always had a love and passion for drawing. I just love to draw. I've been doing it almost daily. There are some days where I don't draw, but they're very few and far between because I just love to do it so much. I've always loved to draw as a kid. I just can't help but want to put pencil or pen to paper, or paint even. So I haven't ever wanted to give up on drawing. There were some times, especially in high school when I was a teenager, where life was a bit rough, my feelings were a bit rough, and I wasn't as inspired to want to draw. I kept trying, but I just didn't have the spark or magic. I didn't want to give up, but I just I was struggling with depression at the time. Let's just call a spade a spade. I was struggling. I mean, I've struggled with depression off and on a lot through my youth. I have gotten better in a lot of ways, where it's not like where it was when I was younger, but in my high school years, I had some really bad depression. And I remember one year that it was just so bad, and I didn't even realize what it was. I didn't realize that it was depression, but I just wasn't inspired to draw, though I kept trying. I just doing a lot of art that I just wasn't really happy with because I just wasn't happy inside. There were a lot of other things going on. Looking back, there were other things going on that just was affecting me, and that was just the way life was. And everything turned out okay, gang. I just want to let you know, everything turned out okay. But it was I've had soul-searching moments where I've had to realize, what is my expectation? What is a big thing? And sorry, I'm all over the map because this is such a big question, and I know so many young artists and current artists and professional artists and wannabe artists and up-and-coming artists and artists that are just breaking in. No matter where you're at on your art journey, you're going to feel this. You're going to experience this, because I think it's a very human thing, is comparison. And I'm not saying comparison is wrong, because it's just an innate thing I think we do as humans. We have to categorize. We compare. We render judgments, right or wrong. We render judgments based on any number of factors of who we are, how we were raised, our culture, all sorts of different factors. And so comparison is going to happen because we have to kind of know where we are in relation to others. And I have found, for me, when I stopped comparing my art to other artists, because I'd be so disappointed. Oh, why am I not as good as Jim Lee? Ugh, why am I not as good as Arthur Adams or J. Scott Campbell or name any other artist? And it would discourage me. And I'd just get so frustrated and feel like such a failure. How come I'm not achieving their levels? When this happened while I was in my career, I learned I'm not Jim Lee. Now, I say Jim Lee because we all know who Jim Lee is, and we all know he's amazing. I've been a fan of his since I was in high school. I'm a fan of his work, still a fan of his work, and I just think what he draws is amazing. I think most people admire what Jim Lee does, has done, and continues to do with his art. Now, when I realized, you know what, Jim Lee is Jim Lee, and I'm me. Jim Lee has had his opportunities to study, learn, and practice his craft in his way, as I have had my opportunities to study, learn, and practice my craft in my ways. So my art's going to develop in a different way than his art has developed. Some ways will be similar, other ways will be different. And those differences are important. Those differences are valuable, because otherwise we'll all draw like Jim Lee, and then Jim Lee won't be special anymore. I want Jim Lee to be Jim Lee, and I want Todd Nauck to be Todd Nauck, because then I'm bringing the Todd Nauck flavor. Now, getting better at our artwork, for me, I think it comes with practice. We continue to practice, we continue to study. It's a lifelong journey. It's taken me I started drawing at age 3, so I remember drawing at age 3. I might have started drawing earlier than that. I've been drawing for about, we'll say, 45 to 46 years, maybe 47. It's hard to say when you can't remember your earliest memories, except for around age 3, when I remembered scribbling in a circle and loving it. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So I didn't draw like this when I was 3 or 13 or 23 or 33 or even 43, really. This is kind of similar to 43 because I'm not that much older than I was at age 43. But it's been a process. It's been study, growth, learning, trying, failing, learning from my mistakes, trying again, leveling up bit by bit by bit. So my advice is, if you like to draw, keep drawing, knowing that it's going to take time, it's going to take study, it's going to take practice. Try to draw as much as possible, especially if you want to do this for a career. If you just want to do fan art is amazing. I do fan art. I love to draw the things I love. Lately, I've been starting to do G.I. Joe drawings because I'm a fan of G.I. Joe. I'm not hired to draw G.I. Joe, at least not yet. Maybe one day I will. But I draw G.I. Joe because I grew up reading G.I. Joe and watching G.I. Joe and playing with G.I. Joe toys. And I want to do fan art of it because I like to draw and I want to try drawing those characters. So if you want to be a fan artist, that's awesome. If you want to be a professional artist, that's awesome. If you want to be a fine artist, that's awesome. Do the art you want to do. Have fun doing it as much as possible. There are days where it's not fun. Sorry that this whole rant is going off on a very wibbly wobbly tangent, but I do feel passionately about it. And I know that a lot of people struggle and they get discouraged and they give up. And that just it breaks my heart that people can get so discouraged and they give up. And it's understandable. And if you have given up and you're watching this right now, you can stop giving up. You can give up on giving up. Pick up your pencil and try drawing something today. Just have fun drawing. Make something happen on the page. Whatever it is you want. Draw a cool piece of fan art. And cool because you think that thing is cool. Doesn't matter how it turns out. You might be rusty because you haven't drawn in a while. That's okay. That's natural. But you picked up the pencil and you're back on the path. And just draw a little bit more each day. Do some research. Study some things. Learn some things. And keep moving forward. Use my videos as a reference. Come and learn from me as best as I can teach or coach. But it's about having, I think having fun keeps me motivated to keep moving forward. When I learned this back in the early days of my career, new doors opened for me just artistically. It's like I was unshackled from the burden of disappointment, discouragement, the comparison. It's like I stopped. And now I can still slip into comparing my work to Jim Lee's or any other artist that I admire. I can still slip into that and think, oh man, and I have to catch myself. I get to choose what I think and feel. Not easy to get there. It took me a lot of training. Like I said, I used to have depression. I can still feel depression sometimes, but I started to learn ways to catch it and course correct. It's not easy. I don't always do it perfectly. In fact, I do it imperfectly most of the time because I'm a human being. And we all are human beings, and we're all struggling, and we're all trying to, you know, make our way in the world. But when I realized, hey, there are times where I've caught myself comparing my work to another artist. And I've had to say, whoa, 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 stop doing that, me. That's not going to help me. I don't want to be discouraged by their art because I'm not them. I want to be encouraged by their art. It's like, ooh, that's a cool Jim Lee drawing. That's a cool Humberto Ramos drawing. I want to create something now. That's inspired me to go create something. Not to recreate their art necessarily, but to go and, you know, I want to go draw Cyclops. That's an awesome Ed McGuinness Cyclops. I'm going to go draw Cyclops. I'm going to go do the Todd Nauck style Cyclops or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So learning not to compare my work to other artists, but to compare my work to what I did yesterday. Step by step, bit by bit. Oftentimes our evolution, our leveling up happens in micro steps. Sometimes we have big jumps, like a lightning bolt sort of strike. It's like, whoa, doors opened up and I leveled up 5 levels in one day. That's pretty rare. Sometimes it takes us a lot longer to just level up 1 level. And that's okay, because that's natural. So, but we can't expect to just do the 5 level up every time. It's time to level up. It doesn't always happen like that. Those are miraculous moments that are great when they happen, but I don't consider it the norm. It's like I'm thankful to be able to draw each day, have fun doing what I'm doing, and sometimes we don't recognize the level ups until we look back on what we did 3 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and go, whoa, what I do now, the way I draw hands now is so much different than what I did 3 months, 1 year, 5 years ago. Same with eyes or panel page layouts or cover layouts, because we've been practicing, working at it. And sometimes when you're not focusing on, I'm going to get better, but just focus on the doing, the getting better kind of comes through the repetition of doing more and more and more. So I think of it as like our skills are like a bucket, and each drawing is a drop in that bucket. And the more drops we put on that bucket, the better chance we have of filling that bucket and moving on to the next bucket. I know it's a bit of a clunky analogy, but I'm a clunky kind of guy. So a very, very long-winded answer, but I can't help but be long-winded about that because that is a deep sort of thing that I think a lot of us struggle with, or maybe some of us don't even realize we struggle with it. So I can't help but want to address that because I've been there, and I can be there sometimes depending on the day of the week, depending on what's going on in my life. And I want artists to know you're not alone in feeling that way. And it's okay. We're going to be okay. So that's why I want to say these things, I guess. I do apologize that my words come out a bit wibbly wobbly. Wibbly wobbly is the best way I can describe it. I thank you, Doctor Who, for coming up with the term wibbly wobbly, or at least that's the first place I heard of it. You know, the time travel is a wibbly wobbly, I forgot the whole line from the 10th Doctor. But it's wibbly wobbly is just a great way to describe how I approach life. It is a bit wibbly wobbly, but why? Because I'm a human being, and we're not perfect people. And my dad gave me the encouragement to try, fail, learn from it. That was the difference. Failure is not failure in his eyes. Failure is an opportunity to learn. The only failure in his eyes, and what he taught me, was not trying. So it's like, so that's the way I've approached things. Is like, if I don't try, then that's the failure. If I try something and it doesn't work out, that's not failure, that's a learning opportunity. And when we learn, we can grow. And when we grow, we level up, and then we just keep moving forward on that journey. So that's the message I wanted to try to get out there in my, I'm going to say, wibbly wobbly sort of way. Let's take a new question so I can give us a break from this idea, this thought here. Let's see, this is a good question here because we're talking about inking, or they're talking about inking as I'm inking. When inking, you tend to blend the characters with the background, which makes it hard to define the character while adding a cool background. Do I have any advice? Yes, thicknesses, line weights. Be mindful of your line weights. We don't really have backgrounds in this image here, but you want to consider the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. Things that are most in the foreground are going to have a thicker line than things that are further back in the background. And usually the backgrounds are in the background. Some stuff are in the foreground depending on how you've laid out your page. Maybe the desk is in the foreground, and then you have the character sitting behind the desk, and then you have the bookshelf and windows and curtains and whatever other paintings on the wall behind him, and then stuff outside the window, maybe buildings or trees. That's all moving further and further and further into the background. So the further you move into the background, make your lines thinner and thinner and thinner. That creates a sense of distance. Maybe one day I can do a video on my approach to that, so you can actually see what I'm trying to convey. Because like I said, I'm a visual learner and a bit more of a visual instructor. I don't like using the word teacher because I don't feel like I'm really that much of a teacher. I don't have really like a lesson plan. It says like, hey, I'm going to draw. I want to invite everyone to come in and hang out with me, and I'll try to share some tips as I go. Yeah. hopefully that helps you. Hopefully so. At least something for you to keep in mind as you move into your next illustration of characters in a given setting. All right, let's see. Oh, and one thing I want to say in regards to inking, I'm going to grab a book real quick. It's right over here. I'm going to step out of camera frame. I just found this in a box here as my wife and I have started out a garage cleaning process. I got to do more of that today. So this is my only chance to do some drawing. These Marvel Essential books. DC does one, I forgot what they're called, showcases. The DC Showcase or the Marvel Essentials. These are black and white reprints. Now these are some X-Men comics that I loved as a kid back in the 80s, so I had to get this volume. You can see it's black and white. In fact, I'll put it here. You can see it's black and white. So it's so great. I've read these stories in color for years. I've some of my favorite X-Men stories. But now seeing it in black and white, I can see the inks without the color. And it's like, oh man, I can see the line weights. I can see how the inker approached the pencils in a different way. And it's like the textures. So I would suggest if you want a resource for your inking, find some of your favorite comics collected in these either Marvel Essential or DC Showcase volumes. And they're not too expensive because they're black and white newsprint. So I think I got this one for like about 10 bucks. Oh, this was 20 bucks. I found this at a used bookstore for 10 bucks. And I love it. And I thought I'd lost it, and I just found it in a box just the other day. So excited because there's so much to learn just by looking at an inker's work without all the color, because you see how it stands out. So I just wanted to throw that out there as another resource to kind of study your inking. Just looking at the masters, we can learn so much just by looking at that. As we're progressing in our skills, we can just check out and see what they've done. So yeah, there's that as well. Hopefully that'll be a help to y'all in your inking as a resource. I hope to get more of those Marvel Essentials or DC Showcase books of some of my favorite stories growing up. So I got the hand done here, and I want to start to ink in the power signature here. So I'm going to switch to a blue micron. Because some of this power signature is going to overlap a little bit. I want to know where it's overlapping. So that's kind of the squiggly, cloudy effect. Trying to vary the clumps with different thick and thin shapes, as well as thick and thin lines. So it's not too uniform. Maybe it's more, the lines are more concentrated as I get closer to the base of his hand. And then it starts to disperse a little bit when we move further away from his hand, or towards the direction that he is directing his magnetic powers. Oh, you're reading Young Justice Book 5 today. Right on. Yes, Young Justice, the 5th volume, just came out this last month. And I think there's just, hopefully they'll do a book 6 that completes the entire Young Justice run. If you're a new viewer, new to comics, I used to do a series at DC Comics from 1998 to 2003 called Young Justice, the original Young Justice that they later based the cartoon on. I was the artist of that series, and I did almost every single issue of that comic series, all but 2. So they've just started collecting those comics in a series of trade paperback volumes, and book 5 came out just recently. I'm so excited. Young Justice fans have been asking for that series to be collected in trade paperback for a while now, and it's finally come to pass here 20 years later. And almost 20 years later, and that's really cool, really exciting, because I love doing that book. A very special time in my career. Every time in my career has been special, but that was, I was brand new. I was still fairly new to the industry. Just got hired by DC and was given the series to launch. And coming off the popularity of the Grant Morrison Justice League, you know, they're going to create this Junior Justice League, and I was the artist chosen to be this. The artist of this series. So it was a great honor and a lot of fun. I loved working on that book. I'm going to switch to a 0.1 micron now, just for a little more control and to build the lines here for his helmet. Probably didn't need to switch to the 0.1 for the top of his helmet. Still need, ooh, hello Eraser. How are you doing? Let's see, make sure I'm still on screen here. Back to the 0.8. So with the inks here now, you can start to really see how this is all coming together. But as I move into the inner parts of the character here, I'm switching to the 0.1 to kind of build up the line, just to maintain a crispness. Oops, bump the camera. The brim of my cap, the bill of the cap, tap the camera there. Sorry for the jostle, gang. A crisper line to get the helmet together without things muddying up. You can always make a thin line thicker, but you can't really make a thick line thinner unless you come in with whiteout or white paint. Then you can do that, but then you know, that can become a mess. That's fine when you're doing interior art for comics. I mean, you look at legendary artist pages, you know, I've seen pages like at conventions, like, oh wow, look at those Jack Kirby pages or whoever, Gil Kane, and every artist we have whiteout and corrective tape and all this sort of stuff on the actual art itself, because the black and white art was just like, hey, get it done so it can get colored and go to print. But for a piece like this, having a bunch of whiteout all over it would be to cover up, you know, a mistake in line weight choice would be less, for lack of a better term, pretty to see. So all this to say, again, wibbly wobbly, if you're not sure what the line weight should be, start thin and then go thicker to create separation of elements in the illustration, like hand, helmet, harness, any of the H words, any of those, or any other word that starts with a different letter of the alphabet, whatever that thing is in relation to the other thing. It's like getting a haircut, you know? The hair cutter will take off some hair and is like, do you want to go shorter? Because they can always go shorter, but they can always take more hair off, but they can't put the hair back on. A similar concept, if you will. I really appreciate y'all hanging out with me. This is probably be a bit of a longer live stream. Since we're doing both pencils and inks, and I know I've been saying a lot of words, but I do appreciate your support. Appreciate you hanging out with me. I've missed y'all here this past month. Hopefully I can get back into doing live streams a little more regularly. Hopefully at least once a week is what I'd like to get back to if I can. But I appreciate y'all coming to hang with me anytime that I'm able to and y'all are available to watch. So thank you. And thanks for all the questions and comments. I need to take a new question or comment. Let's see, how do I sketch without smudging the pencil? Whenever you do a large piece, your hand tends to smudge the pencils or sketches. I use a clean piece of scratch paper that I can rest my hand on. That helps me to keep my hand from smudging. I also like to use an HB lead. It's just soft enough. It's just hard enough. It's not too hard like the H leads. It's not too soft like the B leads. The B leads are going to smudge more because they're softer. It's going to have that softer lead's going to smudge a lot easier. So check what hardness of lead you're using. If you're using anything softer than an HB, which is in the middle between the H's and the B's, obviously, that might be the problem. And then again, the hand, maybe sweat from the hand is causing smudging. So just rest your hand on a piece of scratch paper, scratch paper, as I'm doing right here, and that can help keep from smudging. So those are two suggestions there. Hopefully those will help you. You use, let's see, you're talking to somebody else there. I'm so sorry. Scroll back here, see if there's some questions I missed. When do I feel I do my best work? Morning, afternoon, or evening? Yes, absolutely. Any of those times are times I could possibly be doing my best work. I don't believe there's necessarily one time of day that I do my best work. I think one time of day I feel I do my best work is when I'm rested and well fed. My brain is going to be sharper and stronger. My body is going to be sharper and stronger. So I stand a better chance of doing better work when I am well rested and well fed, because this body runs on rest and fuel. Your results may vary, but yeah, there are times where it's like the batteries are running down. It's like, you know, I feel like the Death Star where the Obi-Wan turns the distractor beam off. That's how I feel sometimes. It's like, ugh, I'm dragging. My wife goes, "Have you eaten?" It's like, no, I haven't. I haven't eaten. I should eat. I need protein. I need to fuel up. Go have, you know, a sandwich, an apple, a little bit of yogurt. I'm hopping and popping. Maybe a cup of green tea if I need a little caffeine. And the machine is like, oh, oh my gosh, I'm a new man. I'm a new man. I'm back. I'm back in the game. So, and that can happen morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night. But I try not to work in the middle of the night. That's the time I like to sleep if I can. But I've had deadlines that have had me working late into the night. I've had a deadline once that had me working 27 hours straight. And that was nuts. I'd never done that before. And haven't done it since. But it was to help a friend out with a rough deadline. And they needed backup, and I rose to the challenge to help out a friend. So so that's just the nature of this industry, you know. Sometimes you work some crazy hours. Unfortunately, I have a very supportive wife as well. So she made sure I was fed. She definitely made sure I was fed and caffeinated. She's awesome. If you've met my wife at the conventions, you know how awesome she is. She goes, okay, we're gonna get you In-N-Out for dinner as a treat. We love In-N-Out burger here being in Southern California. So we had In-N-Out, had a Dr. Pepper. I don't often drink soda, but when I do enjoy a Dr. Pepper. She goes, this, you know, give you some caffeine, a little bit of a sugar rush. So that started my evening. I took about 20 minutes off for dinner, and then she was checking in on me throughout the night. She got to sleep some, but she was really awesome. There was a point where I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to get this 4th page done. She goes, have some tea, eat some yogurt, and see how you feel. And because I thought, oh my gosh, I let my friend down. I'm not going to be able to do this. Had the tea, had the yogurt. I was a new man. I had the strength to get through that last page. So it's like, man, I'm so thankful to have her there, you know, that community, you know, she is in support of me. And I try not to ever take that for granted, that she allows me to spend the time I need to do the thing I need to do. I mean, she loves this world anyway. I mean, she loves geek culture. She grew up on Star Wars. She was a big Star Wars fan as a kid with all the action figures and stuff. So she loves this world, and as well, you know, she didn't read comics, but she watched a lot of the cartoons and knew so many of the characters. I thought it was pretty impressive. I was like, hey, this is the kind of gal for me. Yeah, working long, weird hours is great when you have someone who understands and supports you. So let's look into another question. How do I think of noses for the characters? Well, one, I consider who the character is. Peter Parker is going to have a different nose than Steve Rogers or the Hulk or Thor. So I got to consider the facial structure of the character. I've got to consider then the type of nose that character would have. I'm going to use a little French curve here for a nice smooth line for that bottom part of the harness. I'll use it for the upper part of the harness as well. That's a nice thing about a French curve, is that it's kind of like a curved ruler. We use a straight edge ruler for the straight lines. These French curves can help us do nice curved lines for the hardware that we might have to draw, whether it be certain costume elements, backgrounds, things like that. Love to use drafting tools. Being raised by a draftsman, which was my father, drafting tools were always in the house and is a critical part of my art arsenal. Very, very helpful. So I was answering a question, wasn't I? Sorry, gang. Oh, noses. So yeah, I consider the character, who the character is, and what kind of nose they would have. You know, I look at how the character had been drawn in the past. Look at real life photos of noses of a similar sort, and structure and build that face, that nose, appropriate to the character. So each nose can be different. There'll be some similarities, but there'll also be some differences. So I try to consider that as much as possible. Because the Hulk has a little tiny squishy nose that's really wide. Thor might have a wider brow to the ridge, maybe comes down a bit further than the Hulk's nose. But Peter Parker, it's just everyone has a different shaped face. But like I said, some of it's similar. Some of the noses can be very similar, but there can be just slight variations, slight differences. Just all depends on the character and checking into that, I try to vary my noses as much as possible and just not draw the same nose for every character. Even if there are some noses that are similar, I try to find a way to make them a little bit different if I can. But some characters' noses are distinctly different, like the Hulk, because he's going to be more monstrous. So his nose is a much, is going to be shorter distance length than most any normal human's nose might be. even a person who might have a snubby nose might still be different than, wouldn't be monstrous like the Hulk's nose, if that makes sense. So these are the things I try to think about and try to consider as much as possible. Don't always do it perfectly, but I try to be as thoughtful as I can, if that makes sense. Let's look into another question here. All right, someone asks, how to improve your art and how to find your art style. Well, I just spent a lot of time talking about how to improve one's art, so I probably shouldn't go into that all over again. So I'm assuming you just tuned in. After this is done, go back and rewatch this, and hopefully you can find the section where I'm talking about how to improve one's art. And just Cliff Note version, study and practice, drawing as much as possible. Now, how to find one's style, that's different. So we can talk about that right now. I think style comes from several different places. And it can be a casserole, a mix, a combination of all sorts of things depending on the artists themselves. I think initially, our style is based on what we like to look at. Which artists have thrilled us or enthralled us with their art, with their style, that we are inspired to want to do what they have done, to draw comics or draw cartoons or anime or manga or whatever it is, landscapes or fine art, whatever that is, we're influenced by that style, which is, to me, I consider, especially at least in comics, the training wheels of drawing. My earliest inspirations, I mean, I've been influenced and inspired by I've been influenced by a good number of artists and been inspired by almost an infinite number of artists. Just about anyone who I'm following on Instagram, you can go and see almost 1,000 artists that I follow on Instagram. Now, but my earliest influences were some of my favorite X-Men artists as a teenager. So that would be people like Arthur Adams, Rick Leonardi, Walter Simonson, and Alan Davis. Those are those I consider my 4 biggest influences. Many, many other influences beyond that, but those I consider my foundational 4 that just really, really spoke to me and inspired me and influenced how I approached my drawing, just because I liked what they did. So they were kind of my training wheels. Now, art style, I think, also is a part of how one finds or develops their art style, is just by studying and training. When you learn how do you want to make your shapes, your lines, to convey whatever it is you're drawing, whether it be a superhero or a tree or whatever it is, or to tell a story visually, that comes through training as well. And I think the more we move away from looking at our favorite artists as our inspiration or influence, more so our influence, where we start to learn how to do this without drawing, without having to look at another artist's art, that's when our style starts to emerge, where it starts to become our own. A lot of people can look at my art and go, yeah, I see the Arthur Adams influence. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of us have been influenced by Arthur Adams. When he came onto the scene in the mid-1980s, it was, at least that's when I discovered him. As a teenager, I was a teen. I don't know how old he was, probably in his early 20s. He really blew the industry away and continues to do so this day. Look him up on Instagram, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. He is just an amazing, amazing artist, a legend, and a big influence to so many of us. So a lot of people can see that influence in my work, but they also can see that I have diverged from that and have developed my own style. And that has come through practice, training, and not just trying to mimic everything that I've seen Arthur Adams do, but to find my own visual voice. And that has come through just the way I like to, other areas of influence, and my training and practice, and trying to translate real life into these lines and shapes. So that's kind of initially where I come from, or my approach to answering a question like that. Hopefully that is a bit of a help to you. Hopefully that makes sense. So to find your style, it's okay to be inspired by your favorite artists, but as you progress in your art journey, you're going to move away from feeling that you have to draw everything the way they do to drawing things the way you want to, create your lines and shapes, and your style will emerge. It will develop. I like to say, we don't find our style finds us. I mean, we're still finding our style though, but it comes through study, practice, and just repetition. Just keep drawing. Just keep on drawing. Let's work in this little magnet shape that hangs down from his harness. What are some of my favorite Spider-Man stories? Oh man, oh boy. Let's see. Golly, it's kind of hard to narrow it down, or like to think of really a specific one. I've read so many over the course of my lifetime. I will say this. One of my all-time favorite Spider-Man stories. It's a short story. It's there was a issue. It's Amazing Spider-Man issue 248. Amazing Spider-Man 248. If you ever come across it, check it out. It's from the mid-1980s. I read it in a Treasury edition. It was reprinted in a Treasury edition. And some of you might know the comic book I'm talking about just by my mentioning the issue number of Amazing Spider-Man. It's called The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. Was just such a powerful and amazing story. Written by Roger Stern, drawn by Ron Frenz. And it's just an amazing, amazing story that's not your typical Spider-Man story. There's a lot of heart to it. There's a twist to it that I was not expecting, and just really gutted me emotionally. It was just such a emotionally powerful story. The first half of the issue is this great Spider-Man versus Thunderball from the Wrecking Crew storyline, or story, and drawn by John Romita Jr., which is just a really cool, beautiful, powerful, like visually, like just like slugfest, good guy versus bad guy throwdown through through New York. So that was fun. That was the first story in that comic, and then the second story is The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man, and that is the story that is like, whoa. Don't mean to oversell it, go in with low expectations, but that is probably mine. And I've been on a Spider-Man panel with other Spider-Man creators, and we were asked that question, what's like your favorite Spider-Man story? And I would say more than half of us, if not almost all of us, had that story in our top 3 favorite Spider-Man stories or comic books. It is just a really, really good story, and not one that you would necessarily expect. I think that's kind of what makes it so special, is because it was so different. Yeah, The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man is the name of that story from Amazing Spider-Man 248. Now we could start dropping in the cape here. And start to give the texture to the folds. A little shadow as the cape overlaps and flows behind Magneto. Start to work in the pectoral muscle. So you can start to see the details coming together here. Add a little more reflective to the metal harness here. This is a long video, gang. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I'm just, just going to keep on drawing. Feel free to hang out. If you got to take off, totally understand. Please come back and watch the rest of the video when you have a chance. Let's look into another question here. Do I have a G.I. Joe collection? I don't have a lot of collection. I don't have a lot of the comic books. If we're referring to the G.I. Joe, the comic book, I only have a handful of the comic books, maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 G.I. Joe comics. It ran for like 100 and some odd issues. I think I want to say 130 issues, maybe. So I didn't have much access to that as a kid, to issues of G.I. Joe. But I do have a few of the comics. I have more G.I. Joe action figures and vehicles. In fact, I just found my Dragonfly helicopter, and pretty decent shape. The bottom turret broke, so I had to fix that, and I need to find my the Gatling gun and the missiles. I think I have those packed away with my Joes, because but the canopy needed some cleaning, but it's still pretty decent shape. The rotors are still intact, and still works for as many moves as it's gone through, because it moved from Texas to Pennsylvania, then Pennsylvania to California, and then numerous places around California in a box. Finally, in part of get the garage cleaned up, had to resort some boxes and came across it. It's like, oh, my Dragonfly helicopter. Oh, I loved getting this when I was in, I think I was in 7th grade when I got that for Christmas. It's like, oh, this is such a great, all the G.I. Joe vehicles were great toys. I mean, they were just, the details and the accessories and how many characters you could fit on a vehicle was so amazing. I've been tempted to bust out my old Joes and just kind of reminisce. I've also been tempted to go on eBay and find some of the Joes I didn't have, some characters I was a big fan of but never had as a kid, and maybe build up my vintage G.I. Joe, 80s G.I. Joe collection. Have y'all seen the G.I. Joe episode of The Toys That Made Us on the Netflix? Oh, that's one, it's a great series, and two, that's a great episode. And if you haven't watched it, check it out. And what's really interesting is the G.I. Joe episode, then in season 2, the Transformer episode, it's like there's a connection, even in the toys, long before any, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but the G.I. Joe Transformers connection was less like, whoa, that is interesting. I had no idea. So that's all I'll say about that. Don't want to give away too much or anything. But great series, really, really great series. I hope they do more episodes of that documentary series. I'm going to scroll back here, see if there are any other questions. I'm sure there are a ton. How do you break out of same face syndrome? Kind of how I was describing the how to draw noses when I was talking about how to draw noses is consider the character that you're drawing. and what kind of face that character would have. Peter Parker, Steve Rogers, Thor all have slightly variations to the shape of their face. Steve Rogers is going to have a stronger jaw than Peter Parker. He just is, because of the nature of their build. Thor, he's a bit beefier, so I mean he's a bit bulkier. He's godlike, so his facial features are going to be a little bit different than Captain America's from Steve Rogers. There's still going to be some similarities, maybe a strong jaw, but there's going to be some slight variations. So so that's my first thing, is consider who is the character. Then secondly, look into photo reference to find a face that is of that shape or build, to reference as how to make that face look different, so that not every guy is a strong jawed guy and every woman is the same sort of face either. There will be similarities. There will be. That's the nature of comics. But anytime we can seek to find a way to differentiate those faces is going to play to, I think, the strength of the comic, of the storytelling, of the characters existing on the page. Let's see, look for another question here. What if the inks are digital? I'm not sure. I scrolled back to find that question. I'm not sure what you might have been referring to in response to what I was saying at the time. But for me, digital inks, it's the same mentality as traditional inks. We're going to want to create depth, light and darkness, light and shadow, and life and energy to the line. I think the principles still apply, even though the medium has changed from traditional inks to digital inks. It's still those core basic ideas, I think, still stay strong, still hold up, still are prevalent in the approach, in my opinion, and from my experience. Life to the line, depth and detail, and foreground, middle ground, background, and light and shadow. I just don't know if there's necessarily a way to get away from that, get around that. So that's my opinion on digital inks, which I've been, I have done some digital ink videos on here. You can see my approach to digital inks here on my YouTube channel. There it was. Newest. Going in for round 2. Please excuse me. I think I might have kicked up some dust earlier or something. Or one of these bright lights shining in my face. Those are called photic sneezes. Have you heard of that? When you go outside and it's really bright, from the sun, and you start sneezing? That's called a photic sneeze. A sneeze brought on by the bright lights. All right, let's see. Coming along here, gang. I appreciate you hanging with me. Just realized I lined up these seams in the wrong place. I have the seams on this side going to the horseshoe, but this seam on this side going up to there. Let's just readjust this a little bit. All right, let's try putting in these stripes here in his gloves. Not a whole lot more to do, but we still have some work here ahead of us, so we'll just keep plugging away. Oh, now my nose is starting to run after that sneeze. I think I have a tissue here. It's a piece of paper towel from when I was doing some watercolors earlier today, or not earlier today, earlier this week. Let's work on this. Oh, wait. Yeah, I think we'll work on, no. I'm gonna add some of the dark parts of his purple gloves over here. Let's run a seam down his gloves here. Check out some more questions. I'll see if any new questions have come up. Is this cover here I'm doing similar to the Iron Man cover I did recently? Let's find out. I got it right over here. I would say probably no. So there's the Iron Man, there's the Magneto. I think those poses are pretty different, but interesting thought there. Thanks for tuning in for my Iron Man sketch cover video. Yeah, I was putting some more details here on the bends of his fingers. Let's work on this glove here. We're making some progress, gang. We're making some progress. Sometimes drawings take time, you know? Can be a game of patience. Get that hand going there. Let's see. Favorite Batman storyline? I don't really have a favorite Batman storyline. I've enjoyed a good number of Batman comics, or at least a decent number, I would say. But Hush was good. Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns, Bruce Wayne Murderer. Oddly enough, I thought was a fun multi-part story back in the early 2000s when Bruce Wayne was framed for murder and he had to clear his name. I did a cover for the Robin tie-in issue with Robin and Spoiler on top of a building. think it was Robin issue 99. I did the cover for that comic. That was fun. Have I watched Stranger Things? A character from that would be interesting to draw. Oh yes, I love Stranger Things. I love Stranger Things so much. I think it's a great story, great characters, well written, well shot, well cast, just so many things work. And then the soundtrack, that Mark Mothersbaugh soundtrack, so great. And what I love about it is I grew up in that time. I was the exact same age as Mike and Will and Lucas and Dustin. I was that exact same age at that exact same time. So I would have been in their class in junior high and on into high school. You know, that was I was exact same age, the exact same years in seasons 1, 2, and 3. So so I can really relate to it on that level of like these would have been my classmates, and so that's really special to me. And I love any show about the 80s, just about. Stranger Things and the Goldbergs, oh my gosh, that scratches an 80s itch for me. Just got into watching the Goldbergs this year. Already binged the series earlier this year, and now I immediately went back to start over a second binge through. I've just cracked back into season 3. Season 8, is it season 8? Yeah, season 8 just started. Or was that season 7 just started? The new season has just started. They're 4 episodes into the new season. Great stuff. Yeah, I think it's season 8. And yeah, love that show. So funny, so well done. Yeah. So if it's the 80s, that just taps into my nostalgia. That's my key nostalgia. 90s as well. I mean, I was born in the 70s, so I don't really remember a lot of that. Aside from Star Wars, and by the time I got to see Star Wars, it was the late 70s. Saw A New Hope in the re-release just before Empire Strikes Back debuted. So I didn't get to see Star Wars the first time around because I was too young, I guess. But I did get to see it in the theater in its like year 2. Because Star Wars stayed in the theater for a long time. It was that successful. So I didn't see it right when it came out, but I did get to see it in the 70s technically. But that's when I started getting Star Wars toys and everything. So that was kind of, aside from Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, maybe Gilligan's Island reruns, there's not a lot from the 70s that I really was into. I guess you really start to get into things as, you know, when you start to become like a preteen and teenager, you know, getting into music and stuff, or at least for me. So for me, it's all about the 80s. I had to live through the time of disco. Don't really care for disco. There's some disco songs I'm okay with that I like, but it was never the biggest fan of disco. And I don't blame anyone for liking disco. Please, if you love disco, you can have my share. I bequeath that to you. But that's a 70s trope that didn't really grab me. How did we get onto disco? Oh, Stranger Things. Yes. So love it. Yeah, I should try drawing a Stranger Things character sometime. I have drawn 11 once. I think I drew 11 on a Post-it note. But that's about it as far as drawing Stranger Things goes. I'd love to do a rewatch of the first 3 seasons again. I've only seen season 3 once, but every time a new season of Stranger Things comes on, my wife and I will go through the previous seasons as a run to get a run into the new season. So when season 2 came out, we rewatched season 1 so we could watch season 2 right when it debuted. Season 3, we did the same thing. Rewatch seasons 1 and 2, boom, now we're into season 3. So now when season 4 comes out, we'll have to do 3 full seasons before we can watch season 4. Most likely. We'll have to plan that out ahead of time. But yeah, really love Stranger Things. In fact, I'm starting to get Steve Harrington hair. Got to rewatch that to find out his hair care regimen that he shared with Dustin in season 2. because I am this COVID situation keeping me from getting to the barber has put me in a place of way more hair than I used to having. I haven't had a haircut in 8 months, people. 8 months. I've got hair all over the place. Like back here, it's like it feels weird. I'll feel the hair on my ear, and I'm not used to having hair falling onto my ear, so I feel that throughout the day, and it feels so weird. Like I keep going, what's on my... Oh, that's hair. That's hair on my ear. All right, let's see. Yeah, all this to say, love Stranger Things. Love it. Let's see, let's put some metallic shadow here, or shine shadow. The dark parts are the reflective world around him, the world reflecting around him. And I'm also considering the bend of the belt. So the dark parts are, go ahead and black with a brush here in a little bit, is the environment around him. Maybe buildings, maybe people, maybe, I don't know, whatever is around him. But because it's curved and not so close, it don't have to put in tons of detail. Unless we had a real extreme close-up of his belt, then we could like, oh, well, we can really make reflective things more distinguishable. We can make it buildings or Wolverine charging at him. But this distance, it can just be amorphous blobs of environment around him. All right, so need to draw on the energy signature on this hand. We'll have this leg actually overlapping. Then where's my blue micron? Do the other energy signature. Trying to be as thoughtful as I can with these cloudy squiggles. It's not just doing a bunch of squiggles. It is, but I'm trying to be controlled so that I'm thinking of the design of the squiggles. So it doesn't look like I just scribbled in something here. But there's an intentionality to this power signature. Varying the thicks and thins of the sections of this energy, we'll call it cloud, and the variation in the line weight as well. As the magnetic spectrum is kind of he's manipulating it, it's just all kind of starting to coalesce around his hands. Coalesce is one of those words I learned by reading comic books. When the energy coalesces, it swirls, and it manifests in swirls. So I've always enjoyed that word, coalesce. All right, so now we have his cape, and then finish off his face and helmet. Do a light erasing, fill in a few of these blacks with a brush, and we'll have the inks done, but we're not quite there yet. So back to the 0.8 micron, let's get this cape drawn in. So I'm going to create a bit of a fade here. Now I want big chunky blacks, as I was mentioning in the earlier part of this live stream, as a framing element to really make the figure pop forward. I also want to create a fade to give it a little bit of texture and dimension. A little bit of that shadow. So I know that these parts I filled in X will be where black will be. So I'm going thin to thicker, making the lines thicker as it approaches the area that will be black here, to help create that fade, that transition from dark to light. Very thoughtful about this, really concentrate on thin, and then I add more pressure to get the thick. Thin, add more pressure, get the thick. And just repeat that. So I want to fill this in black, which I'll do with a brush in a little bit here. It'll hopefully be a nice gradation. See, and then we have the other part of his cape blowing here behind. Woo! In fact, I need to put my phone on to charge. It's getting low on battery. There we go. And then so we got the contour of the cape there. And then we got some heavier shadow parts. Right through there. Right through here. We'll just make that all black way down there below. Now some of these transition lines are going to be a bit long, so I'm going to use my French curve. Ooh, come back here, French curve. To help me create, this is another way to help create a fade. Still that thick to thin pressure. And we get thicker as we move towards the black part. Of the shadow underneath. Create a little guideline for me. Where to start and stop my thin to thick. As further inside, so we'll have thick to thin all the way from the edge of the cape to the shadow. Then one more section right here. Slightly different angle because of the fold of the cape. Start thin, then add more pressure to get thick. You do that with each line. All right. Coming together. Now let's see. Let's finish off this helmet here and his face. Let's take another question as well. And isn't everything squiggles? Art, maths, life, and the existence of the universe? Sure seems that way, huh? It could very well be. I guess it all depends on how those squiggles are ordered, at least with art. How do you order your squiggles? I guess that is where one's style comes into play. This is how one chooses to order their squiggles. This is how I choose to order my squiggles. And by order, I mean arrange, not like place an order like on Amazon. I'm putting some reflective shine here in this helmet. Am I going to do colors tomorrow? I don't think I'll be live streaming tomorrow, but my next live stream will probably be colors for this image, unless something changes. But I would like to do and have every intention of doing an art live stream where I do the colors for this one. But no, I don't think I'll be able to come and do an art live stream tomorrow. But hopefully it won't be too long before I'm able to live stream again. Hopefully next week. Maybe on a weekday, maybe next Saturday. We'll see how things go. All right, so now we need to ink the face. Just want to double check my structure here, my shadows. My angle of the eyes, make sure he has that menacing look. All right. So I'm gonna give him the white eyes. No pupil, no iris. He's gone all magnetic on us. Those eyes will be white with power, magnetic power. I need the 005. Using the 01, powering down to the 005 here. A little more finer detail. Get the mouth inked in here. Still using the 005 micron. Okay, let's build up the border around the line art for the shadow, black shadow. Okay. I'm going to take a moment to dry there, but while the helmet area is drying, what I'm going to do is erase the pencil lines from other parts of Magneto here so I can fill in the blacks with my Pentel pocket brush pen. So I find the kneaded eraser does pretty well in not making the inked lines lighter. It won't fade the inked lines as much as maybe using my Staedtler Mars plastic eraser here. Still a good eraser, I still use it a lot, but in this sort of situation, if I can remove the pencil lines with the kneaded art gum eraser, then I'm gonna ride that train for as long as possible. Still need to add some blacks here in his gloves, but I want to do that with the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. So I'm not going to fully erase all the pencil lines, the indications from his gloves. So as part of the shoulder, it won't come up with the needed art gum eraser, so I switch erasers there for that. Carefully ink or erase around the inks of his helmet. Add a little cross-hatching detail into certain areas. With cross-hatching, you want to keep in mind what is the shape that you're rendering and what is the direction you want to show that fade, because essentially cross-hatching is conveying shadow. So where's the light source coming from and how are you wanting to convey that shape? It's not just random little dash lines that you throw everywhere. That doesn't convey what we want in cross-hatching. In this regard, if this was battle damaged Magneto, sure, I might throw in random tick marks to show he's been beat up, he's been damaged, but that's not the case here. So I don't want to approach it in that way. So I'm keeping in mind the shape of the muscle and how those lines pull around and convey that shape. Very important. Okay. Notice here I want to thicken a line a little bit here on his cape, a little outer contour. Make that a little thicker. Just like that. Okay, now I can take my Pentel Pocket Brush Pen and we will fill in some black areas. and add some shadows to that extended hand. I love when I can fill in all the black area there, and it really brings the strength and power to the figure. Things start to pop. Things start to look more finished and finalized. Like as we start to fill in the black all around him from the inside of his cape, I think that we'll really start to see the figure work of Magneto really start to pop off the page. A little bit over here. A little bit more down below here. A few more shadows. Then we'll tackle that hand. Okay, now let's see. With the brush pen, I can start to create these shapes that I'd want to sculpt out the shadow, the dark portions of his gloves, because everything purple is going to have this kind of shadowy part. I can create these shapes with a couple of brush strokes here, letting the bristles of the brush create that shape instead of drawing it in like I did in other parts where I drew it in with the micron then filled it in. In this sense, because of the shapes, the size and shape of these shadow areas I want, I feel that it would be a better approach to use the brush pen. See if we can tackle another question or two before we sign off here. How do I know where to put the harsh shadows? Lighting, where's the light source coming from? And then, so the shadows would be on the opposite side, whatever is furthest away from the light source. And then two, what is the shape? Like the shape of the thumb, each digit, the meaty part of his palms, that wrinkly inside part of the palm here. You know, the muscle groupings. How do I foresee those shapes? And then how do I convey that mass, so that's how I know how to put the hard shadows, or at least how I like to experiment with it. Add a little more shadow here to the under part of his forearm. Give it a little more weight. And weight, that's W-E-I-G-H-T, not W-A-I-T. More weight. Then grab my 0.1 micron. Add some crosshatch, some little fade there, creating that transition from dark to light. Still keeping in mind the shape of each section and how I'd want to pull lines to create to convey the roundedness, the mass of that shape. Okay, let's put my cover signature on here somewhere. Not my autograph, but my signature. We'll just put it right here. Put my last name on my art here. At least on a piece like this, it would. This is what the signature I put on all the Marvel covers that I draw. That C print. Put my last name on there, not so you know that it was me that drew that cover. Then you'll see another name under my name, which says Rochelle. That's my friend and colorist Rochelle Rosenberg, who colors pretty much all of my covers or anything I do for Marvel. She is my go-to colorist, my team supreme. Editors always know I'm going to ask for Rochelle on the project if they don't have a colorist already locked in for the assignment. I'll say, can we get Rochelle? Is Rochelle available? Can she color me? So actually, just seeing another little place I want to add a little more detail, a little more cross hatching. Just to have this detail consistent throughout Magneto. Okay, and that is the line art for Magneto. We're done. So there it is with a logo, and there is the finished art. So much fun. Gang, thanks for hanging out with me. I don't even know how long this video's gone for. Can't even see the length of time there on the tab. Anyhow, that doesn't matter. What does matter is thank you. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for participating in the live chat. Thanks for your questions and comments. I'm sorry I couldn't address them all. I know I went on some long answers on some of these questions. Some of them really touch deep in my heart and what I want to try to convey to all the young artists and up-and-coming artists and even other fellow professional artists, maybe having us think of in ways that we don't often think about, especially how we approach our art and approach ourselves. Because I feel that's a big part of our art, because it's coming from inside and onto the page, whether it be a picture of Magneto or even something that's even deeper for us that we're trying to convey onto the page. It's all coming from inside onto the page because it's so personal to us. So that's why when people make mean or rude comments, it can sometimes hurt because that's tapping into something that was coming from inside onto the page. So remember to try to always be kind. And if you have something negative to say, try to make it a constructive thing and be mindful that there's a real person on the other side. Whether you're seeing a piece of art or someone's thought or opinion on a comment, be mindful to be kind, be gracious, because that's what we want, coming towards us. Let's try to reflect that towards other people. At least that's my belief. being kind, being gracious, being merciful can go a long way, especially here in this COVID-19 situation. Hopefully you are safe and well wherever you are at here in the US or across the world. Hopefully you are safe and you are well, especially as for us in the US as we're moving into the holiday season, the wintry season, colder season. Could be a better chance of getting sick. So please be careful. Wear your mask, wash your hands, try not to touch your eyes and nose while you're out in public, so that you can hopefully avoid getting sick, because we want all of us to stay well so we can get back to as normal as possible and get to go into comic book conventions and movie theaters and things like that. So yeah, so please be kind to those you are stuck at home with, and those that you encounter when you're out and about. I know tempers can kind of start to flare up a bit when things are so hectic and stressful. Try to remember to be gracious to your fellow man and woman and others, so that hopefully we can all be gracious with each other, so we can all get through this together. And like I said, get back to normal as much as possible and keep that grace and kindness and love flowing. Don't we all want that? It all starts with us. So gang, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate your grace and kindness and love towards me. It means a lot. So I know I can get wibbly wobbly in a lot of my responses and talking. And but thanks for supporting my art, supporting my videos. Feel free to share my video. Please feel free to come follow me on social media, and you can like the things that I post or comment. I appreciate that. Or retweet my tweets or things like that. I appreciate that interaction. It's a great way to support artists if you're not able to go out and buy their comics or original art. Just even the social media currency of a like or a comment or a share goes a long way, and we really do, all of us artists, appreciate and support that, or appreciate that support, I should say. And so thank you for that. Gang, if you just discovered me here on YouTube, feel free to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe and set your notifications to alert you when I schedule new art live streams or upload new art videos. If you're watching this in replay, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and feel free to leave me a thumbs up. Other great ways to support my art. So gang, hope you have a great weekend. So much fun to be able to get to hang out and draw with you. Hopefully we can do the color, Copic marker color art live stream here real soon. So until then, I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing, keep having fun. Stay well, everybody. Take care.